Okay, so for this week's Wax Carving Wednesday, I'm going to show you how to make a matching wedding band to go with this ring here. So this is not one of my pieces, but I do need to make a wedding band for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to melt this, carefully warm this wax up, warm the ring up, melt it into the wax, and then carve all the extra away. Now, when I go to do this, I think you can see here how it's higher on this end significantly. So before I start to do anything, I'm going to actually carve a little spot away for the stone to sit. And what that's going to do is it's going to let the shank sit more flush with the piece. And in this case, I do have to put the wedding band on this side, so I have to pay attention to that. And so I'm just going to carve this back just a little bit further here. Make sure that when this settles, it settles in the right location. So I'm going to make sure that the ring sits properly so that I have this. So you can see there's 3 stones on this. This stone side needs to face down. Otherwise it won't fit. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my bench torch and I'm going to heat up this file and set the ring into position. Just like that. Actually, I'm going to need to turn it. Ooh. Has to stay on there, so I need to get it to sit. So I'm going to heat this file up here. So this is just the end of a normal file. I want to try to heat a fairly wide area because I want to go across both sides. You do need to be careful about heating things up when there's stones in it. I'm not going to be heating this up so much that it will affect the stone. I'm just going to heat the ring up enough so that it sinks into the wax so I can carve around it. So I'm going to take it easy. Go nice and slowly, and as the ring gets up to temp, by transferring the heat from the file to it, I control it. So I'm not heating up the ring directly, heating up the file. When it sinks into the wax where I want it to, I just remove the file and it will stop sinking in. Now this one's a little tougher because of that top stone. I'm going to want to try to pull it to one side, but I'll just have to as I go. So once I'm done getting it to sink in, I'll show it to you how it's going. There we go. Now I'm going to let that cool off before I move it. And I think you can see how the wax, how it's melted right into the wax there. And I just have to check it on the inside here. So I can see it's actually got to go down a little bit. So I'm going to heat it up again, and I'm going to slide it towards this side because I need a little bit more playroom. And that's happened because of the stone. So I do have to heat it up again. And I'm just using my bench peg to hold the wax so that I can push the ring back towards onto the inside a bit more there. There we go. So all I've done was I just pushed the ring that direction, and I used this little edge on my bench peg to stop it from going too far. And again, I'll just let it cool off before I start working it. So now I have, when I look through it, I can see that I have a bit of room. I could have left a little bit more room for this whole thing, but when I carved my wax, I didn't leave quite enough space. So I'm just going to take my rotary file and I'm going to very carefully remove the material on the inside of the wax so that it's flush on the inside. I'm going to leave a tiny little bit of a lip there, and the reason for that is I don't want to damage her engagement ring at all. So I leave a tiny little bit of wax there, and I'll get that off afterwards. There we go. So now it's the same size as the other ring. I've got quite a bit of playroom here. We'll just take that ring out of there. Now this one's going to be a little bit finicky because it has wax along the edge. Normally I'd use my scalpel for this, but I don't have that in front of me, so just using this piece of silver to remove some of the extra wax that's holding it in place. There we go. So now you can see that it's left a perfect impression of everything that's going on the side of this ring. So the next thing I'm going to do is, first I'm going to remove that little bit of material on the inside that I left before, so that I know that the ring size is exactly the same. And I'll tweak this a little bit as I go as well. Now, I have to determine the overall dimension of the ring. This is a fairly thin ring, so I don't want it to be too much thicker, but I don't want it to be this thin either. So now that I have that, I can just use my dividers and draw a line all the way around here to show me where that line is. I'll do one on this side as well. And this is just so that I have a general thickness on my ring. I'm going to rough this line in. Again, I don't normally do this with a rotary file, but I'm doing it with a rotary file right now because expediency. I don't recommend doing it this way because it is easy to make a mistake. And I'll show you how to do it in a slower fashion, but this doing it this way really shortens my video length, which I think is kind of handy. So I'm just taking material off around the outside so that I'm close to that line. I don't want to get it right over that line. I don't want to make it, I want to finesse it with a file. just like that. There we go. So once I've got it kind of roughed in, I'm going to clean it some more. I'm just going to clean my file first. I like to do this with a fairly fine file. I don't like using a traditional wax file. Let me just move this back a little bit for you. So I'm going to just file this nice and parallel, just like so. And we'll just clean the file. Now, because I'm not using a wax file or a really rough file, I do have to clean it with a file card a little bit more often, but I think in the grand scheme of things that it really is worth it for overall strength. You can see how the rings indents are starting to show up here on the side. And those are from melting the shank or the ring right into the wax. This is traditionally how we make fitted wedding bands. I'm just checking to see what we have here. Make sure that it's pretty parallel. See a little bit of extra material on this side here. And just like that. So we'll just make sure this guy fits. So that fits in there just like that. And I can see where it's not quite parallel. And although I am making this wider or slightly heavier, I don't want to make it too heavy because it's going to make it uncomfortable compared to the engagement ring, so I kind of have to judge it. So you can see how that's going to fit right in there. Now, I'm going to stop right there for this week, and I know it's a short video, but I have to find my drawing and my client consultation to remember exactly what I'm doing on this other side. But that's how we start this sort of thing. You can see that right here and here, I've got some little that's going to be where one of the stones goes, and that'll have to be filed down just a bit, and I have to remove all that extra material, but see that's where the diamond fits in there. And I think if I just take this down a smidgen more, give it a little bit of a curve on this side. There we go. So that's it for now. That's how we get these sort of things started. And then I will continue working on it, and hopefully we'll have this finished up for next week. Great. Thanks for watching, everybody.